The idea of this being controversial and that people don't want to talk about it, again, is a side effect of that emotionality. And, I understand where people are coming from. People these days, especially, have no role models for how to have a difficult conversation. Everything is my side yelling at your side, everybody, painting each other as the more extreme and saying whatever, most extreme things they can think of because it gets them the most retweets. Actually finding the areas on which we agree, disagree, look up the facts where we disagree, having an actual, targeted, aimed conversation at solving this problem long term. People are not interested in solving the problem. People are interested in demonstrating how good, how virtuous, their particular side is, and just, getting rid of anybody who disagrees. Now, when somebody is confronted with, a genuine conversation, somebody like you described, where you want to talk about it with the people around you, and people just, again, I understand where they're coming from. They have no role models for how to have a difficult conversation. So people are just kind of backing out of it rather than genuinely educate me, tell me, what is your point of view? They, feel like, oh, this is so radioactive. I'm worried about how I'm going to look if I do not demonstrate, just how, affected I am by it, by, oh my goodness, I got the vapors. This is such a tough. That's not how to deal with the topic, and that's not how to prevent abuse.
Yeah.
So again, you're serving as that role model in a way that I think would will and can do society an enormous amount of good. What I discover myself in that conversation, again, is to acknowledge where people's emotions are. I get where they're coming from. But if we instead, give them what's essentially permission to talk about the topic, now all of a sudden people really do want to know. They really do want to help. They just, as I say, they need what has disappeared in society, which is role models for how to have a rational conversation rather than an emotionally laden one. So again, that's where I keep using my phrase, tap your inner Vulcan, take a deep breath. And what I find over and over and over again with audiences is it really just takes two basic facts about how to think about the entire situation. And then all of a sudden I get, oh, and it starts making sense. People can actually start having a rational conversation about it just by giving the, oh, I get it now. Those two factoids are, one, pedophilia is not a synonym for child molestation. Now, of course, I understand where people get that misinformation. The only time we ever hear about pedophilia is when there is a case of child molestation that's in the news. So, naturally, these have become synonyms in the public mind. They're not. Pedophilia is a sexual orientation pattern. These people are genuinely sexually attracted to children the way the rest of us are sexually attracted to adult women, adult men. They didn't ask for it. It's the result of brain structure, and they cannot change it. That's different from child molestation. Child molestation is the behavior. This is what harms a kid. This is the crime. That's what must be prosecuted. Not all pedophiles are child molesters. There's no way we can get a survey, so it's not like we can figure it out. But we have every reason to believe that only a minority of people genuinely attracted to children ever actually act on it. Just because they're a pedophile does not mean that they're a child molester, and vice versa. And this we do know. The great majority, the majority, 2/3-ish of child molesters are not actually pedophiles. They actually are more attracted to adults than they are to children, but they use a child as a surrogate, because the child was in the environment and manipulable, and they didn't have contact with an adult. That's the most common, for example, within incest patterns, which again happens much more commonly than the pedophiles who, the ones who do offend do it outside of the family. It's not the cluster of variables are unlike the incest situation. The bottom line is not all pedophiles are child molesters. Not all child molesters are pedophiles. And people are, aiming at the criminals, the ones who have committed crimes, as if they were the people who, no, a lot of these people are just born, come to figure it out, when they're 12, 13, 14, getting crushes on 12, 13, 14-year-olds, just like everybody else, nobody notices. But by the time they start hitting, 18, 19, 20, and they're still getting crushes on 13, 14, it's only then in adulthood that they're realizing that, oh, something's up. That's now different from a gay person growing up who realizes that they were different, pretty much from the get-go. So really what we want to do in order to prevent pedophiles becoming child molesters is to make it as easy as possible for these people to come in to therapists, get therapy, sex drive reducing medications. They're not going to be able to join a, coming out group, for gays and lesbians the way that, I and my people could. Right. Yeah. They need a professional, with real confidentiality. If we want to actually help, we need to make it easier for these people to get help. But all we're actually doing with the overreactive policies is making it practically impossible. We're putting up, mandatory reporting legislation, which to an expert, I know this pedophile, and I am qualified to say that this pedophile is not putting anybody at risk. The average mental health person, the average psychologist, the average social worker does not have that background. Now, of course, they're in legal danger if they don't report when they should, but nothing happens if you report when you don't have to. So, of course, people respond to the pressure, default to reporting. The people who want to come in and get therapy know that. So what happens? They don't come into therapy. So instead of having a pedophile, getting support, sex drive, reducing medications, whatever it is that's appropriate to their case, instead we have pedophiles out circulating in society with absolutely no supervision to anybody. There, feel better?
Yeah.
We're making the situation worse at the same time as congratulating ourselves at how bad we're being to those potential bad guys, again, who haven't actually done anything and are working hard to stay that way. Twitter is banning, conversations that, would help these people get to support groups where, again, the number one thing we know about, how to help a person not commit any kind of crime, child molestation or otherwise, is having, pro-social contacts. But we're cutting off all of their opportunities to have exactly those contacts. We're making the problem worse in our hysteria. So as I say, so the number one big rule that people get wrong, but once they understand, all of a sudden things start to fall in place, is that pedophilia is not a synonym for child molestation. Although, it's like this, classic Venn guy, there's overlap, but these are distinct and minority overlap. The other one is that pedophilia is not a choice. All the evidence indicates over and over and over, study after study after study, this is a brain thing. They are born with it the way the rest of us are born with, attraction to adults, men or women, or whatever it is that they're attracted to. They cannot change it. No amount of therapy is going to turn somebody, from a pedophile into a non-pedophile. All we can do is help give these people the tools to deal with this sexual interest pattern that they did not ask for and cannot change. Now, what's amazing is that as that evidence was emerging, the pedophiles themselves says, we knew it. Nobody was listening to them. And in, classic days of both psychoanalysis, where everything was about relationship with mother, or in the heavy behaviorism days, everything was, whatever you were learned and was reinforced when you were a kid. No evidence for it, never was. It was just the going psychological theory at the time. But now that the evidence is rolling in, they're born with it. This is a brain thing. If there's going to be a method of prevention, it's finding out how that chain of events starts and preventing it back then. So if we actually want to do prevention, again, it's going to be science. But people don't want to put money and resources into this kind of science exactly because of the controversy surrounding it. And people are afraid of accidentally looking like, not really looking like that they're supporting pedophiles, but if that they don't, with the correct amount of weight, condemn everything attached to it, that they will be mistaken for somehow supporting child molestation.